My wife's lengthy affair with my friend was ruined when I exposed everything and caught her red-handed by. When I expose everything by printing their private messages, I expose my wife's long-term affair with my pal. For the sake of the story, my wife, 26F, cheated on me with a friend, 27M, whom I call Brian. A little background. We first met at a friend's wedding when I was 22. She was close to both the bride and me, the groom, and they seated us at the same table so we could hang together. I was blown away by her beauty when I first saw her, and we bonded right away when she sat down and we started talking. We discovered that we had a lot in common. After eating dinner and dancing, we chatted for a while. We danced and drank all night long, kissed in the center of the dance floor, and when we drew our companions away, the bride and groom approached us and inquired about our relationship. They were eager to play matchmaker, so we simply shrugged and continued our evening. After we parted ways without exchanging numbers, I received a text from her asking me out a week later, and the bride gave her my number. It became a relationship when I naturally said yes. Aside from minor disagreements, the relationship was fantastic. We never really argued or had any big issues. After 2 years of dating, I finally asked her to marry me, and we were married less than a year later. Before everything fell apart, we had been married for just over a year. Little things that were bothering me right before our first anniversary included her becoming more cautious with her phone, the increase in girls' nights, and the near-complete absence of our sex life. I've brought this up several times, but I've been dismissed and told that I'm allowing my fears to control me. I got colder and colder as she would carry on as if she didn't care about what I tried to say and how I felt. As I left for work, I stopped kissing her goodbye, and we didn't talk much unless it was urgent. I took her laptop and phone one night while she was sleeping, looked through her emails, texts, and messaging applications, and found nothing. I next investigated her car based on the accounts I had read online. I took her keys, searched her car, and discovered a second phone. I understood right away what was happening, but I wanted all the proof because I didn't want her to say something like, it had only happened once or something dumb like that when I confronted her. There was only one number on the phone when I searched through it. I spent the night researching divorce attorneys after reading every message, printing out every picture, and connecting the phone to my computer. I read the biographies of several lawyers in my home office for hours on end. I emailed one that caught my attention, but since it was a Saturday, he wasn't there. I immediately reached for my phone and inputted the number since I wanted to know who the guy was. Since nobody doesn't have Spectrum, I intended to call and act like I did, but Brian's contact information appeared. It took me a minute to realize what was going on, but when I did, I lost it. My wife entered the door to check on me as I was shouting and swearing in my office, but I told her to get the F out of there. After shutting the door, she proceeded to our room. I had never swore at my wife or spoken louder than usual. I spent the entire day in my office, silently fuming and gazing at the wall. I must have detected something in my voice because he asked if I was okay when I told him I was going out for a drink and that I really needed to do so. I called one of my friends, the groom from the wedding, and asked if he would accompany me. I took all the printouts and went to the bar without saying anything. When I initially got there, I ordered a beer and 4 shots of Brian. My friend Ted showed up as I was on my last shot and inquired as to what was going on. When I told him outright that Laura was cheating, he sympathized with me and I asked if he wanted to know who it was. I told him it was Brian and he became visibly agitated. He was the one who introduced me to Brian and all he could say was, "I'm sorry," repeatedly. Although Brian and I were never particularly close and never asked to hang together, we were cordial when we did run into each other at an event. Since I had just learned about it and hadn't even spoken to Laura or a lawyer yet, I told Ted not to bring it up to anyone. I urged him to keep it from his wife, and he agreed when she inquired what was up with me, saying that I was experiencing issues at work. After spending the majority of the night drinking and chatting, I booked an Uber and left for home at approximately 3 in the morning. It was the first time I had checked my phone since I had phoned Ted, and I saw that there were numerous missed calls and texts from Laura asking me where I was, when I would be home, and whether I was okay. She was dozing off on the couch when I arrived home, so I went to our bedroom and fell asleep. She was in the bed when I woke up, so I got dressed and went out. I picked up my car, drove to my workplace, and spent the rest of the day working. When I returned home at approximately 10 o'clock, I was surprised to see my wife, who informed me that she had prepared dinner. She asked if I wanted her to reheat it, but I declined and went to bed. I told her to leave me alone and that I wanted to go to sleep, and she followed shortly after, inquiring what had been wrong with me. After she persisted in bothering me, I finally had it and said, "Laura, stop, I'm trying to sleep." The lawyer sent me an email the following morning requesting that we meet later. I accepted and prepared for the day. Laura had prepared breakfast and asked to talk, so I made a small plate and sat down when I walked downstairs to go. She began by stating that she wanted to know why I had been acting differently and continued to talk about how I had changed. I assured her that her work would soon come to an end, even though it had been tough. I told her I had to leave after finishing. Before I went to meet the lawyer, I went to my office and counted down the minutes. My wife would occasionally phone my workplace and leave, so I told my assistant I was heading out to lunch with a client before I left. I gave the lawyer everything I had learned about her, and the meeting went well. The lawyer said, "I'm sorry for everything that's happening, but I'm glad you gathered all this information. You see, we live in an at-fault state. Therefore, the majority of your money is not your wife's." I told him that wasn't even on my mind. All I was thinking was that I needed to get a divorce from her as quickly as possible. He requested to preserve the proof, but I informed him that since I haven't told my wife yet and don't want to hear her justifications, I would rather you just create copies. Agreeing, he had duplicates made by his aide. When I asked when she would receive her paperwork, he replied that it would take roughly 2 weeks. After thanking him, I walked away. When I got home to face my wife, she wasn't there, so I called her and got no answer. Then I called again and got no answer. "We need to chat," so I texted her, "I don't care if you're writing Brian right now, get home." Just a minute later, she phones me and asks what I was talking about. I urged her to go home right now. I told her, "Wow, look at that 15 minutes. That's about the same distance between here and Brian's, isn't it?" When she arrived around 15 minutes later. She stared at me in disbelief, and I gave her a minute to collect herself, but she continued to stare at me, and I had nothing to say. After I allowed her to continue her attempts to gaslight and deny me, she became agitated and began to insult me. I first pulled out the proof, displayed it to her from the side, and said, "Look at this mountain of things I gathered on you," after slamming my fist into the table to silence her. After I showed her each paper one at a time, she began to cry and told me to stop. She told me she loved me and made an effort to apologize. "Just a minute before, you were so determined to attack and denigrate me." So I asked, "Honey, what happened to that energy?" She made an attempt to hang me and apologize. Telling her not to touch me, I held out my hand. "We'll go to the bedroom and do anything I want," she says. I assured her, "Sweetheart, I will never touch you again," while looking her in the eyes. "My lawyer, would you like to know who else has these pictures and messages? Get a suitcase, pack your clothing, and leave my house immediately because I'm divorcing you." I haven't heard from her since that 3 days ago. I apologize for the length of this and for any typographical issues. I'm interested in people who have been in my position. What can I anticipate from this? I appreciate you reading. Update 1. I took much of the suggestions you all gave me after I wrote the first section of this. I made an appointment with my doctor to get screened for sexually transmitted diseases, STDs, this morning as part of my goal to take some control of my life. That visit is in 2 days. After that, I began getting in touch with my father and a few of my friends. They have all been quite helpful, giving their own counsel and asking if I need assistance with anything, but I declined since I had this mess under control. I then began corresponding with all her family, texting her parents to express my gratitude for welcoming me into their home and for everything they had done for me. However, Laura and I are divorcing, and although I'm glad I'm not going to have to deal with them anymore, I wouldn't really miss them because they were so controlling. I then encouraged them to ask any questions they might have. After a while, I didn't hear back from them, so I went on to Laura's sister. This was hurtful since I was good friends with her sister, and I knew that this would ruin our connection. I apologized for having to text her, but I wanted to let her know that Laura and I were divorcing. I want to thank you for accepting me as a brother right away. If you ever need anything from me, I'll be here. Her parents replied to that text about the same time I wrote it. I'll type up the exchange. "We're really sorry to hear this, parents. Could you please explain why Laura hasn't spoken to us? Laura and I have been having an affair for at least a year. I believe it began before to our wedding. She left the house, so I assumed she would have come to you, but I'm not sure why she hasn't gotten in touch. I believe you should give her a call. No, we haven't heard from her parents. We appreciate you informing us, and we will give her a call. Are you certain she had an affair? I am certain that I located their texts. We're very sorry that she did that, parents. We'll make an effort to contact her. I can't recall if I said that Brian's fiancée is engaged in the first section, but I moved on to him after taking care of her family. I am aware that some of the comments mentioned it. I assumed that Laura and Brian would have plotted some grand scheme, but either they are simpletons or Laura didn't tell him I found out. Around 2:00 p.m., I texted her to ask if we could get together for coffee or anything. She agreed by 2:00 and instructed me to meet her at a sexy hipster coffee shop across from her workplace at 2:30. I got there first, ordered my awful coffee, and waited for a while before she came in, got hers, and joined me. I informed her that because there was no simple way to explain what I was going to say, I would simply tell her straight out. Brian has been having an affair with my wife for over a year. She was clearly astonished, so I informed her that I had only learned a few days ago. I know I should have told you sooner, but I had to start the divorce process and deal with my own sympathy. How did I find out? She inquired. I explained everything in the first post to her. I then took out a binder and asked if she wanted to examine the evidence I had collected. She reached for the binder, glanced through the images and messages, and then began to sob quietly. I informed her that if she wanted to confront Brian about it or use it to test Brian's deceit, she was more than welcome to take the binder and extra copies. She thanked me, got up, took the binder, and I urged her to let me know if she needed anything. She nodded and left, feeling very defeated. I know you all advised me to simply maintain sobriety, maintain composure, and other such things, but my entire world suddenly fell apart. This week, I'm going to spend time drinking, smoking cigars, and listening to loud music while sitting on my back patio. I'll quit pitying myself after this week and resume my regular routine. Positively speaking, I've already packed up the majority of her belongings, including clothing, jewelry, and other items. I've also placed our wedding book and all of the pictures of her in the boxes. I don't want her staying any longer than necessary if and when she returns for her belongings. Before you ask, no, except from a few picture frames, nothing is destroyed and I didn't harm her clothes. I've notified everyone I needed to tell. My doctor's appointment is set. My lawyer is working diligently to get me out of this insanity, and 90% of her belongings are in boxes. As of right now, nothing else is going on. If she doesn't get involved, this could be the most amicable divorce ever. I'm not sure what's left. I appreciate you reading, and I always value advice. Update. Hello, everyone. I apologize for not responding to messages and comments for a while. I believe I've caught up, and now for the update. As a result, I've been enjoying my pity party drinking ever since the upgrade. Since learning about everything, I would say that this is the first time I've been semi-sober, and I'm not sure how to describe how I feel. I suppose the adjective numb is accurate. I told everyone in the last post, and the only person who didn't reply was Laura's sister, with whom I had a strong relationship. After posting and passing out on my back patio with a bottle and several beer cans surrounding me, I continued my drinking spree the night I made the update and woke up to the fragrance of breakfast being prepared. My initial reaction was, oh my God, Laura returned and thought that breakfast would make up for her actions. I threw myself out of the chair, ready for a yelling fight after working myself into a passion, only to discover that it was Sophie, Laura's sister. I tried to calm myself down for a while, but Sophie ran to me and put her arms around me as soon as she saw that I was awake. She simply took my hand, guided me to the table, and placed a plate in front of me without saying anything. She apologized to me while I was eating, and when her sister arrived at her place, she just stated that we were experiencing issues and that everything will be all right in a few days. Then informed me that she asked Laura whether it would be okay when I texted her to let her know we were separating. He is divorcing you, but why? It seems that Laura suddenly lost it and told Sophie everything. I told her everything that had transpired after sneering and saying, there's no way she told you everything. Sophie informed me that I was exaggerating the situation because Laura had stated that it was a one-time occurrence. I informed Sophie that I had no plans to reconcile with Laura, and if that's the reason she's here, she's wasting her time. If she's still in communication with Laura, Sophie should advise her to get legal counsel. She chuckled and declared that she was here for me, not her sister. She assured me that although she would undoubtedly support my sister, she and I are friends, and that she would not desert me, particularly if I had done nothing wrong. I got up, walked over to her side of the table, and simply gave her a hug. Her saying that made me feel so much better, since I was afraid that all of this nonsense would destroy our friendship. Sophie spent 2 days in my guest bedroom before departing this morning as I was getting ready to head to my cabin. Laura is unable to touch anything because I owned it before to the marriage. She asked if she could join me as I was gathering my hunting and fishing gear, but I told her that as much as I would want it, she should probably go check on her sister. She nodded, gave me a hug, and walked away. I sincerely appreciate Sophie's support, and before any of you assume that she is attracted to me, please know that she is just 20 years old, which is far too young for me. Nevertheless, we have a very wonderful friendship. I nearly forgot to mention that I visited the doctor and was tested. The findings should be available on Monday. Brian's fiance assures me she's fine and is unsure of what to do when I contact her a few times to see how she's doing. I informed her that I would be pleased to listen if she wanted to meet at any time next week. I sincerely appreciate everyone's reading, communication, and compliments. During a really dark period in my life, you all have been a beacon of hope. The only advice I can provide to those of you going through this is to keep your head down. Concentrate on what you truly want in the event of a divorce or reconciliation, and establish your goals one at a time. In my instance, the lawyer notified everyone close, followed by the doctor. However, avoid posting it online and schedule some time to express your emotions. Again, thank you, and I apologize for the length of these updates. Update 3. As I mentioned in my previous story, Sophie came to stay at my place for a few days before leaving as I was heading out to hunt at my cabin. Good news. On my first day out there, I caught a deer, a beautiful fat 8-pointer, which made me extremely happy because it freed up the remainder of my time to go fishing. Although I only managed to catch 2, they were of a respectable size, so I killed one and prepared the other for dinner. I cleaned my deer and took in the scenery during the remainder of my stay at the cottage. I vowed to limit my drinking to last week, so I spent my trip sober, save from a few drinks each day. Moving on to the past few days, my doctor called to let me know that I'm clean. You can never be too sure, but it's not a huge surprise because I haven't had many romantic evenings in a few months. After some time, I finally got a response from Brian's fiance, who informed me that she was currently staying with her family. She didn't really elaborate, but you can infer that things aren't going well because she's still living with her family. At least she is safe with her family and has all the help she may require. I told her to get in touch with me if there was anything I could do. Naturally, I accepted her invitation to meet and have coffee the next day. We met up at the same squalid hipster coffee shop the next day and spoke for roughly 2 hours. We discussed everything that had happened to Laura and me. She wanted to know what I was doing, whether I was divorcing, and whether I had any hope of getting back together. I informed her that, in my opinion, cheating is the end of the world, and that, given the degree of disdain and selfishness required to cheat, let alone for a year, she clearly didn't care for me. What was her plan, I asked. She told me that everything she believed to be true has turned out to be false, leaving her perplexed. She wasn't sure if she should forgive him or go on, or what she should do next. She's a better person than me, I told her. If you can forgive someone for cheating on you for so long. She informed me that her entire family was advising her to forgive him and get married. Just because it's what your family wants doesn't mean you have to follow along, I told her, threatening to be direct. Brian obviously doesn't care about marriage and what it all means as he cheated on you, his fiancée with my wife. If that doesn't show you he's not marriage material, I added. I advised her to make decisions that would impact her life on her own and to do what she believed to be right. I informed her that my only option was to try to conceive of a method for my heart to deceive my mind into accepting it and forgiving her, but I was unable to do so. I added that I had only spoken to one person and that nobody could make me change my mind because I had already made up my mind. You probably knew what you were intending to do when you went to stay with your family, but you let too many people in, and they all had different ideas. I concluded by advising her to trust her instincts. Her heart and head will constantly deceive her, but if she has a gut feeling, it's probably correct 9 times out of 10. Shortly after, she thanked me and we parted ways to head home. My lawyer informed me the next day that Laura had been successfully served at her workplace. I expressed my gratitude to him for all of his efforts, particularly the amount of time he had spent on them. Shortly later, Sophie called to inform me that Laura was crying in bed and hadn't left her room all day. I informed her that she had been served and that she was likely understanding how much she had messed up. Sophie wanted to know whether I had anything and how the cabin was. I filled her in on my activities and my time there. After I got my house and myself ready for my wife's explosion, we spoke for a little while before hanging up. Now that she's been served, I assumed that if there was ever a moment she would, it would be shortly. I am currently eagerly waiting for my turn. I told my friend that I had Advil on standby for what I can only think will be a severe aching, and he promised that he would rush over to be a witness if Laura appeared, just in case all else failed. I'm writing now while I wait for Hurricane Laura to hit my house. I'll provide another post if and when she hits. I appreciate everyone who read. Update 4: an hour or so after my previous entry, I was anticipating Laura's arrival at the house and her outburst. Considering everything that has transpired, I never truly know the women, but I also had no real motive for her to do anything. I checked all of the cameras I had installed to make sure they were operational, both indoors and out. I informed my friend over the phone that Laura had been served today and that he should come to my place right away if she showed up. Because of this woman, I will not be going to jail. As it happens, I was correct since Laura had arrived at the house yelling for Mom to let her in and hammering on the door. Laura was knocking on my door, so I summoned my friend and Sophie right away to come. She was calling me every derogatory name in the book, pleading with me to let her in, and pointing out how callous I was. She's not incorrect because all I could do was chuckle as she was yelling and pounding on the door. I then questioned why. To the best of my knowledge, she didn't just walk in with the keys. My friend was still yelling and swearing when he arrived, so he started recording on his phone and remained in his truck. However, this fool brought his wife, who was Laura's friend, with him, so she came out and attempted to soothe her. She approached Laura, wrapped her arms around her, and made an effort to engage her in conversation. My friend, who now has a video of it, called the police when Laura slapped her across the face while yelling at her to shut up. She screamed and cursed till the police arrived. She made a valiant effort to play the victim when they did, and when one of the 2 officers approached her, she broke down in tears and told them that I had assaulted her and thrown her out of the house. In order to verify that I didn't do what Laura claimed I had done, my friend and his wife informed the other officer that she was screaming and pounding on the door when they arrived at the house. When I opened my door after the officer had finished speaking with my friend and his wife, Laura exclaimed, "There he is. He hit me and I want him arrested." When I told him that I could use my phone to prove she was lying to me, he began to cuff me. I was instructed to show the officer the view captured by the outside cameras after he stopped. He expressed regret after watching the video for making snap judgments and thinking I was at fault. I told him that I didn't blame him, but he went on to say that they had received a total of 15 calls from my neighbors and that Laura had screamed out during her outburst and that he had hit me. Therefore, the officer's decision had already been taken. Laura was placed in handcuffs and charged with disturbing the peace, public intoxication, and DUI after interacting with the police for approximately 30 minutes. Sophie appeared as the police were taking Laura to the car and approached me to ask what had occurred. I showed her the video of everything on my phone, and the officer approached me to give me the case number and other documents. Sophie began to inquire about the charges, so I simply went back inside. Sophie came right after and sat next to me. She informed me that she had gone to the shop for 10 minutes, but when she returned, Laura was gone from the living room, leading her to believe that she had gone to bed after drinking too much wine. After a long conversation, Sophie asked if she might stay the night. I informed her that she was welcome at any time, and she explained that Laura had to spend the night in jail. They might save her in the morning, although I'm not sure why. When I returned inside, she informed me that she had called her parents to inform them of the situation and asked if they could help Laura, as Sophie doesn't have that type of money. After sharing a beer, we promptly retired to our beds. Sophie had already left to meet with her folks when I got up in the morning. I don't believe it's a fun conversation, but I haven't heard from Sophie, Laura, or their parents. Update 5: although I haven't heard from Laura since that evening, her lawyer informed my lawyer that he would be Laura's attorney. We may now begin this process at last. In addition, I texted Brian's fiancée to check on her. She informed me that she had evicted him from her home and had her father and brother pack up everything he owned and deliver it to his home. She informed me that she simply wants to move on and put this behind her, and that her brother and father wanted to beat him, but she asked them not to. She told me that her close friends are there for her in times of need and thanked me for checking up on her. To let her know how much support you all offered to her and to me, I sent her the URL to my Reddit page. I hurried home from work as soon as I got off on Friday. I was going to spend the weekend at my cabin. Sophie was in my driveway when I got there. She had a list of expectations from my wife and wanted to take her sister's belongings. I quickly glanced over everything, but one item was either in a box or waiting to be picked up in my garage. I informed her that nothing in here will be touched or transported. If Laura wants to say that I destroyed her belongings, I won't be held accountable. I told her that since I was heading to my cabin right now and didn't have time to deal with Laura's mess, I would pay a moving company to come and pack and take everything for her. That would be fantastic, she continued, and she hopes I enjoy myself. She loaded a box of Laura's clothing into her vehicle. Then turning to face me, she requested if she may come this time. Sure, I answered. Why don't you return home, drop off the package, and prepare a bag for her? She was pulling up when I arrived at the store and packed up the truck. After locking up my house, Sophie and I left for the cabin. The last time I was up there, I discovered what a treasure that place is, and the weekend went extremely well. It's a spot where you can really breathe in and unwind, and it has a lovely view. It's also very isolated, so I don't have to deal with anyone. I phoned a moving firm on Monday, and by Tuesday, 3 men and a large truck arrived and began loading. I took pictures of all the furniture, recorded the movers loading it, and had every box open while they closed and picked it up. I forwarded all of the recordings and photos to my lawyer and continued with my day after thanking them all for putting up with me and giving them each an additional $50. Without all of her belongings present, the house appears clean but empty. My lawyer advised me not to get rid of anything that would be deemed shared at the beginning of this process. So I moved the majority of the furniture into a storage container. Since she departed, I've been sleeping in the guest room, so I've been purchasing brand new furnishings until I started writing this piece. Now that I have the room, I'll probably keep most of stuff in the garage. Even if I win the divorce, I won't be keeping the house. It contains far too many unpleasant memories. I appreciate you reading. Update 6, I haven't posted in a long time. I am a high school baseball coach, so I am now quite busy with getting this divorce finalized, dealing with my soon-to-be ex, and coaching these kids. Please be patient with me while I write this lengthy post because a lot has transpired. My lawyer received some documentation a few days after the movers had taken her belongings to Laura, claiming that I had damaged them and threatening to sue me unless I paid her $1,500. Inquiring as to the precise location of the harm he claimed I had caused, my lawyer forwarded her all the recordings and images. All this does, he informed me, is show the judge how insane she is. It may be a pain in the moment, but it will all be wonderful proof when it comes time for court. Her lawyer probably wasn't prepared for my attention to detail and my plan to take pictures and record everything. I read all of the horrifying accounts of the things these people's ex-spouses did to them after learning about my wife's infidelity, and I vehemently refuse to be another victim of such atrocities. I've braced myself for nearly every possible scenario and charge she might level. Right now, I wouldn't rule anything out for her. Every other day, Laura would call, but I never answer. If she leaves a voicemail, I simply forward it to my lawyer without even listening. You are a lawyer's wet dream, he says every time I send him something. You listen to everything I say, and you have a ton of proof that you have acquired on your own. I haven't yet had a client that has achieved such success. I didn't exaggerate when I mentioned that he always says it, but it also makes me smile every time. I feel a little bit better about the whole affair after he gives me the confidence that I'm doing everything correctly. We established a date to meet in a neutral lawyer's office a week ago after my lawyer informed me that we had sufficient proof to bury her out of court and that it would look good on us to treat one. That was probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. He warned me before we met to never respond to anything Laura said because everything we did would be videotaped for a judge to see if the case went to trial. To my astonishment, she and her lawyer were already waiting in the office when we arrived early in the morning. The attorneys began introducing themselves as soon as we entered. Laura and I waited in silence to see what would happen. First, Laura's attorney inquired about our services. The only thing we'll provide is half of the home's sale price and half of the savings account, mine sneered, citing a mound of proof of the infidelity and Laura's bad behavior. A judge wouldn't give you that much. In essence, you will take with you what you entered the marriage. But he didn't say that at the time. He turned to face Laura and said, "If you decide to go to court, I will put every message making you read it all out loud, then I will put every photo up for everyone to see in court." He then asked her to explain in detail what she was doing in each picture. "I'll next play the footage that was shot that evening and discuss your most recent allegations." Laura began to cry as she looked at me and asked if there was anything she could do to help. "You have been unfaithful to me since before our wedding," I remarked. "There is absolutely nothing you could do to make me forget or forgive you for what you did. All I can demonstrate is that it was a couple weeks prior to the wedding, but I anticipate it was much longer. I want this whole hoax you made to end, so please sign the papers. They are more than you deserve." She had to excuse herself to the bathroom after crying uncontrollably for 15 minutes. She was still crying when she got back, but she quickly signed the paperwork and left. "I will just need to sell the house after everything is filed, which should happen in about a month. Thank you to everyone who read and to everyone who offered suggestions. This will likely be my final post, although I could be mistaken, and I'll let you know if anything else happens. I want to thank everyone one more and hope that what has occurred to me has benefited someone.